Welcome to your class on trends and channels. Now, let's get into trends. How trends are formed is by price constantly moving up or constantly moving down. Now, you've got uptrends and you've got downtrends. Now, how uptrends are formed is your highs get higher and your lows get higher too. So you'll find price moving up and then coming back down, moving up, coming back down, but in a specific pattern. So price will move up, come back down, move up again, but this time when it goes up, it'll be higher than the previous one. And then it'll come down. But when it comes down, it will never go lower than the previous one. Instead, it'll go higher than the previous one. So your lows are constantly getting higher and your highs are also constantly getting higher. The minute price decides to go lower, if one of your lows go lower, then you are officially no longer in a trend. Same applies to downtrends. Your lows get lower and your highs get lower. So you will find that price will constantly be moving down and it'll come up, but it won't come up higher than the previous one. So price will move up and then come down and then come up again, but your next high will be lower than the previous one. And then it'll come down and then your next low will be lower than the previous one. And then it'll come up and your next high will be lower than the previous one. Now the minute price goes up and goes higher than the previous high, we are no longer in a trend. Now let's look at this practically in terms of the market. Now you're not going to find anything perfect, so you want to look for a more or less all the time. So I think this is as good as it gets. So this is a downtrend. Okay, so price goes up, comes down, and it is slightly lower than the previous one, comes up, goes down, but notice how the high is lower than the previous high. And your low is lower than the previous low, comes up, goes down. Now this high is lower than the previous high. And this low is lower than the previous low. Now this one comes up and, it doesn't really go higher than the previous high. So what does price do? It starts to range and then eventually it does go down and then it starts the downtrend all over again. So from here goes down, comes up but not higher than the previous one, comes down and is lower than the previous one, comes up but not higher than the previous one, and then comes down again. Now this is generally how downtrends form. The same would apply for an uptrend. Comes up, then comes down, and then goes up again but higher than the previous one, comes down but higher than the previous low, comes up, your next high is higher than your previous high, comes down, is higher than your previous low. Let's zoom into that a bit. There we go. And then it starts to range and I guess it changes direction. Now this is generally how trends form. Now what you want to look for with trends is more or less channels, because that is where you find your consistency. So channels are formed with support and resistance. So you want to draw two parallel lines, or find two parallel lines rather. So this would be a channel, and the only way to really spot these things is by playing around and seeing what works. So you just want to play around with the shadows and see which forms the closest thing to a parallel line. Sorry, two parallel lines. Now, the rule with your channels is you have got ascending and descending channels. So your ascending channel will have more or less two parallel lines. You're not going to find anything perfect. As long as it looks more or less parallel, that's good enough. So you want to find the width of your parallel line. Now, price is going to be moving in between this line. It'll move up and down, sometimes touching your support and resistance level, sometimes not. But either way, it'll move up and down. And eventually, it must break out. Now, ascending channels, usually they say must break out to the downside. But that rule doesn't really work all the time. So you want to try and accommodate for both sides. So if it breaks out to the top side, you're covered. If it breaks out to the downside, you're covered too. But what you want to take into consideration is the width. If the width is 10, then the rule is you should get 10 too, but we found that you only actually get about 50% of whatever the rule is. Now this is a generalization. What you need to do is study your currency pair and check how much it breaks out by on your own for each channel. And then we have got descending channels. Again, this could break out to the top side or to the downside. So you just want to make sure that you calculate what the width is. And if that is 10, we want to aim more or less for about 5. Now let's look at this practically. So our width is from about there to there. So that looks about right. So it's 503 points. And then we are going to scroll down to see if it actually did break out by 503 points. This one broke out by 733. Okay, now I know right now you might be a bit confused about what this thing is. This is called a crosshair. You'll find it over here, or you can press Control F and it'll bring it up for you. Your crosshair basically helps you measure what is going on in the market. So if I want to measure the distance from, or the number of points from the top to the bottom, then you'll see that the first figure is 0, because that is how many candlesticks have moved over. And then the second figure is 317. And then the third figure, is the price that we are currently at. Notice how I can move left and right, trying to keep on 317. And the first number will move as I move left and right. So as I move across the candlesticks, my first number will move, counting how many candlesticks I have moved across. Okay, now with your assignment, what you want to do is kind of look for these trends, try spotting them a bit. Now there's no right or wrong way to find a trend. You just want to find two parallel lines. Channel. There's no right or wrong way to find a channel. You just want to kind of find two parallel lines and see how it breaks out, just to get a gauge of how things are going. So just play around with it. This looks about parallel. We're not looking for something exact, so even if it's slightly off, it's the channel. So we want to figure out the width, so that's 640. Now, while you are doing your assignment, you want to make sure that you write all this stuff down. So our width is 650. Now, what you want to do is draw text. So you want to click on this A, because that is draw text, and that basically fixes the text to that point in the chart. So we said 640. Now, when you are making your label, you want to make sure that the color that you use for your text is yellow. it is very important that you actually use the colors that we are saying, because it makes it easier for the person marking your assignment. So 640, make sure that it is on the inside, and then just try and put a more or less where you actually measured from. So it is more or less from here. So you can use the arrows to over there. Okay, now the arrows, you also want them to be about red, so that it makes it easier for the person marking your assignment. And then you basically want to check how much it's broken out by. And that's about 612. So you want to write that there. Now, once you found your parallel lines, you want to be honest with yourself. When we say be honest with yourself, what we mean is look at the actual candlesticks. Would I have been triggered into the market with this specific pattern? The answer is yes, you would have. You could have been triggered into the market because, can you see it broke out and then broke back in again? So you just want to highlight that. So you want to go to Insert, Shapes, and go to Ellipse. Now you just want to put an ellipse over where the negative would have been, and try and make sure that your ellipse is green. This also helps the people marking your assignment. So make sure that all this extra information is there, so they know that the number inside the pattern, that is how much the width is, and the number outside of the pattern is how much it has broken out by. So you want to make sure that you keep that information. Okay, so that is all for trends and channels. If you have any questions or you need further clarification, don't be shy to contact us.